Ari, the matchup that on paper seems like the most lopsided one in the first round still has some pretty interesting aspects, and I can see a potential upset on a very narrow path. Clemson's going to Texas. Texas has lost twice, both times to Georgia. One was much closer than the other. Clemson also lost to Georgia very badly. Clemson got hot toward the end of the season, still lost South Carolina at the end, but beat SMU, is the only 3-loss team in this bracket. I think there's a path to an upset, but I also think there's a universe where Texas does everything it's supposed to, and this game is a blowout.
I would love to know what your path is.
You ready for the path? Here's the path. The path is Clemson's defense is better than it has been most of the season. Mm-hmm. Plays up to its athletic capabilities. Plays up to the number of NFL players that are on it.
Gets after Quinn.
Because I think the assumption is that everybody thinks that both these defenses are really good. No, the Texas defense is really good. The Texas defense may actually be the best defense in the country. Clemson's defense has not been great. It's had some lapses, specifically the Louisville game. The South Carolina game at the end, letting Lenora Sellers get loose, though I think they actually bottled him up fairly well most of the game. SMU letting them back into the game when that should have been a blowout win in the ACC championship. But if they can get after Quinn Ewers, and I don't know about you, I came away from the SEC championship game saying I'm not sure how dynamic Texas is on offense, because I think Georgia's got a good defense, but I watched Georgia Tech shred Georgia's defense. So I'm not sure that's not a Texas issue more than it is a Georgia issue.
Yeah. So here's the thing with Texas. There is a discussion, and we're going to have it a lot the next few weeks, of whether or not they need to think about what to do at quarterback. And I know that Sarkisian said that Quinn played a great game, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
they were very limited offensively.
The game I saw didn't look great.
And I was wondering whether or not they were going to be put in a position where we were going to see that as soon as the SEC championship. Now, the thing with Clemson is their coach has a long track record of playing in games like this and has done a very good job of making Clemson ready. Like Clemson winning the game on Saturday night, I thought was an impressive showing.
Like Clemson, when they get in these situations, typically does not lay eggs in these situations.
And also, too, Texas's offenses can be bad. It can be hard to watch. So
now they can, I think
they can light it up.
Texas's defense can make Clemson's offense very hard to watch. And if that happens, we're not even having this discussion. It doesn't really matter what Texas does offensively. They're going to win because Texas's defense, when it is playing at its best, can completely demoralize an offense. And I think that could happen in this game. But very interesting subplot to this.
Mm-hmm.
Kade Klubnik, Clemson quarterback, Austin Westlake grad, coming home. Now, this is a guy who probably could have gone to Texas. So the history of it's really interesting. So Arch Manning was a class of 2022 player like Kade Klubnik. Excuse me, not Arch Manning. Quinn Ewers was a class of 2022 player like Kade Klubnik. Quinn was originally committed to Texas when Tom Herman coached there. Tom Herman got fired. By the time that happened, Quinn had already decommitted. And Quinn decommitted, reclassified to the class of 2021, went to Ohio State. So by the time Kade Klubnik chose a school, which was in March of 2021, Quinn was already off the board. So Kade probably could have gone to Texas if he wanted to.
Yeah.
He chose Clemson. He felt like that's the best place for him, cast his lot with Dabo Swinney and company. And it has been a fairly up and down career for Kade Klubnik. But I will say this season, he's emerged as a guy who can win you a game with his arm and his legs.
Yes. And you also have to remember the Clemson that he committed to.
Different.
It was a very different Clemson.
They
at
just
the time.
finished playing for
they were, Trevor Lawrence was still a thing.
Yeah.
It is interesting whenever somebody goes home, though, for sure. And there's a lot of quarterback star power in this game, Andy, on both sides. And then, of course, the backup on one side. So, that is what's really interesting to me is what can Clemson take I think that Kade Klubnik, by the way, to finish off your point there, has come on in a way that he hadn't been playing.
Yeah, I'm sure the coaches who recruited him all knew this, but I don't think we knew until this season how athletic he was.
Yeah, and it's been a really awesome ride to see him emerge. Now, the thing with Clemson is that like it's easy to forget when you watch them win the ACC. They haven't been very good this year.
Right.
Like, frankly speaking, they just have not been a very good football team.
There's a reason they had to win the conference championship game to get in.
And like in relation to, and I get in trouble with this, not very good in relation to the other teams that we've been talking about to win the national title.
Yeah.
Not very good in comparison to the average team. They're an above average team, but they're not elite. And the question that you have to have is, A, can they play much better? And B, with Texas, is that if what we saw in the SEC championship game and some of the previous games in the month leading into it are who Texas is, or if it's a result of playing elite level defense. And like, that's the thing, like from the Georgia game, like we left that thinking neither of those teams are going to win the national championship. But then when you take a 24-hour break from it and watch everybody, it's like, well, maybe they will. So I don't know. 11.5 seems like a lot of points in this game.
It does, but there's a version of this game that's a 3-touchdown win for Texas.
There is.
And it really hinges on how well Klubnik can manage against the Texas defense, because the Texas defense will get after you. Carson Beck learned that the hard way for Georgia on Saturday. That's really the part that I'm curious about, because I do think Clemson, I don't think Texas is going to come out and just roll Clemson's defense.
I don't either.
But I want to know how Clemson's offense is going to handle this Texas defense, which is, I think this is the best defense in the country.
Yeah. And like getting up 14-0 on SMU and kind of cruising to a victory is a lot different than going to DKR.
Yeah. Now, I don't think they're going to be bothered by that. They play in a stadium that is similarly,
but the defense in that stadium,
right? Exactly. The defense being in that stadium is the problem. Like, they've dealt with this. They go to South Carolina every other year. Like they know they play in some big games, but this is going to be a huge game for Texas because they made the playoff last year. I think they were very disappointed that they didn't make the national title game, and I understand that, but they got beat by a very good Washington team. This feels like Texas is now in the mode of, hey, we're going to be here over and over and over again.
Yep.
Let's go compete for national titles.
Yep. And, it is interesting the way that the seeding worked. Like, having to play Clemson as the 12 seed isn't how we would have drawn it up. We would have thought for a large portion of the year that they would be playing Boise or the G5 representative, and now they're playing a team that's got some dudes on it. So, it's going to be a nice test. And, the good news for Texas is if they're able to get through this, they've got an Arizona State team who's playing really well right now, but probably shouldn't be matching up athletically either. So,
yeah,
Texas is in a really good spot, and this is a big opportunity at home to prove it.